Hi guys, it's Misty from the Book Rat, and now that Austin and August is over, we can get back to some regular scheduled things. And even though all of that was going on, I wasn't just reading Austin. So I have a lot. I have a backlog of books that I've been reading and I've been wanting to talk about, and today we're going to look at 3 of them that I quite liked, for the most part. I definitely at least have some things to say. Titles, synopses, and links to the book will all be in the info so you can find out more. I'm not going to waste your time on giving you too much of a synopsis for each of them because that's unnecessary. I'm going to get straight into them. They are all very different, not only from each other, but I think also from what is out there, so let's get into it. The first book up is Sadie by Courtney Summers. All of these I read, can't see me at all, all of these I read as digital copies, so that's why I'm going to show them on my Kindle. Sadie is contemporary and kind of approaches the story a little bit differently. It's told through alternating, not even viewpoints necessarily, though it sort of is, but through styles as well. So told through Sadie's perspective and through a podcast. I actually shared a little sneak peek of this as part of the blog tour, so I will link that video in case you want to see more what I'm talking about, especially as concerns the podcast. But basically it's a story, a novel, told in the style of like Serial or S-Town or something like that, which makes it a very different and interesting reading experience stylistically, and also the way that things are kind of pieced together. So this was the first story I read by Courtney Summers, and I have to say it will definitely not be the last. She's one of those authors that for whatever reason I've always bought and had on my shelves and just hadn't read her yet. I did a book chat a while back about unread authors, and I'm pretty sure I included her in it because every time a book comes out by her, I'm like, that sounds like something I would love, but also like something that might tear me apart. And so I buy them and I'm like, I'm gonna read it, I'm gonna love it when I'm able, and I can't sometimes with books like that. I just can't bring myself to put my shriveled little heart on the line like that. There's not much of it that remains, so I gotta be careful with it. But okay, I'm a convert. I get it. I understand why people love her. It was a really strong story, and it ticked a lot of boxes for me. It's got this sort of cat and mouse pursuit feel, twofold, because not only do you have Sadie's story and her sort of mission she's on and who she's looking for, but then you have the podcast, which is seeking Sadie and trying to figure out what happened and piece together things. So you've got these constantly building layers of tension between the two that just work together to escalate it and make it feel so like fraught, which was excellent. It is as wrenching as I thought it was going to be. It is very timely, I think. It made me weirdly feel a little bit different about the podcast that I like listening to, because having Sadie's story and having the kind of statement in the beginning of the podcast saying that they're not going to share the gory details because it's just not your place necessarily to get entertainment value out of that, it makes the whole experience of listening to those podcasts feel a lot more voyeuristic and ghoulish than they already did. And frankly, I mean, they do. They are intriguing, they're entertaining. We all like unsolved mysteries. There's a reason that is a genre that has always done really well in books, in TV, in film, in podcasts, in the news. It doesn't matter. We're all really intrigued by stuff like that, and understandably so. I think we're at a point, especially now with the sort of proliferation of stories like that in the media, that we do kind of, I think, look at them a little bit differently every now and then and see that they're being presented as little bite-sized bits of entertainment, and there's someone's pain packaged for your sort of sick pleasure, you know? So it kind of plays on that, making you more of a willing participant, I think, in some of the horrific things that go on. It's just, it's brilliantly plotted. It has so much character. You really get these 2 distinct, equally well-told stories. It has that dreaded ambiguous ending where if you're really wanting resolution, you're not gonna get it, but it might tell you a lot about yourself, how you interpret the ending. I already know that I'm a pessimistic asshole, so I already knew how I was going to interpret it. I already had a feeling how it was going to end. So just, you know, it's It's difficult and it's powerful and it's just an absolute standout. I can pretty much guarantee it's going to be in my top books of 2018. So, starting off with a bang. Moving on to another bang is Dance of Thieves by Mary E. Pearson? It kind of sounded like Kermit there. Dance of Thieves by Mary E. Pearson. This is the sort of spin-off to her Remnant Chronicles series, which if you're a weird stalker of mine and have been paying attention, I have not finished. And yet I read this. So I haven't read the third book, the final book in the Remnant Chronicles series. I've talked before about how it's really difficult for me to finish a series when I like it. That's the stupidest thing. We're going to be talking more in depth about that soon because I've been thinking about it a lot lately. But it's just, sometimes I can't bring myself to let things end. So I had been really putting off reading that one. But when I saw this was a spin-off set in the world, I thought, well, this is a way for me to continue to enjoy the world without having that series finished, which is so stupid, knowing that there are going to be spoilers, and of course there certainly are. I think they're mostly mild, and weirdly, I think it actually worked in my favor because now that I kind of have those spoilers, I feel like I can read the book. It's so weird. That's neither here nor there. This is its own story, it stands on its own. I think having read the Remnant Chronicles would certainly give you a leg up into understanding this world and what has gone on before to bring them to this point, but I do think that you could go in cold. I don't think you have to have read the Remnant Chronicles to read this and enjoy this. It might stay a little more confusing for a little bit longer, but the core of it, you know, its bones, are still just straightforward epic fantasy feel, and kind of a dash of like espionage and crime family mixed in there, and I think that's enough to kind of let you get your footing without knowing what else has gone on in the kind of fantasy elements of this world. So I do think you can read it just if you want to, or if you haven't finished that series, like I did. That said, the book itself is just, it is everything I could have wanted it to be, and I mean that fully. I had no disappointments, I had no moments of questioning anything or feeling like, I wish that this had been better, I wish this character had been stronger, I wish this hadn't happened. I was thoroughly in it, committed. We made it Facebook official. Like, I loved it. First page to last page, loved it. Partly it's because it feels tailor-made for me. It has so many things that I like. Forced proximity romance, which I get is kind of a fucked up thing, but I like it, so whatever. As I mentioned, the sort of secrets and espionage and crime family thing, totally on board with that. Fierce, strong women, and characters who are constantly at odds because of their secrets and their strong personalities and their sort of misunderstandings. All of that, I just eat it up. I think there are elements that may be confusing to readers, at least in the beginning, even if you have read the Remnant Chronicles, because you are kind of plunged right in and you don't... It's a new part of the world and you don't necessarily know as much, or maybe you do. Maybe you find out some of that stuff in the third book. I don't think so, though. So I'm going to go with it. I think there are aspects of this world as it expands that you're kind of plunged right into and you don't know who these people are, what their place is, and it's just kind of slowly revealed and sort of picked away at. And I think that might be confusing or frustrating for some readers. I like a book that plunges you in as long as the reveals are well paced, and I think they are very well paced in this. I'm not saying that nothing is ever predictable, or at least, you know, to me, because everything. Nothing is ever unpredictable, although we'll be talking more about that in a second. No matter how much you're going to predict it, no matter how much you're like, okay, well, these characters are going to do X, Y, and Z, and they're going to end up together, and this is going to be foiled or whatever, it's never in a disappointing way when you know those things. It's just because you feel it coming doesn't mean it's not worth that sort of payoff when it finally does. I can't sing its praises any louder. I loved it, and I desperately need the next book. And I'm sure it's going to be a series, so when the third book comes around, I'll avoid it for a while because I don't want it to end, and then maybe there will be a spin-off of the spin-off, and I'll be able to finish this one. But for now, I recommend picking it up. And the final book I want to talk about is The Raging Ones by Krista and Becca Ritchie. I did an excerpt of this one as well, so you can kind of get a feel for the style. This one is fantasy, sort of slightly post-apocalyptic, I guess, but that's not necessarily the focus. It's about 3 characters told from 3 viewpoints, and they are all linked in a kind of literal sense. They can sense each other, they can feel each other. their emotions, their physical sensations, and they also all are part of a world where you have a death day. You're scanned at birth and told when you're going to die. You don't know how, but you know on that day you're going to die without fail. And yet it fails, and these three live past their death days. They have no idea why. They have no idea why they can feel each other, and all they want is to kind of escape the life that they've got and get somewhere where they can feel safe and not like they're going to be hunted for the fact that they escaped their death, basically. Throughout, it's one of those premises that it could have really gone south fast. Like, it could be a little too, like, concept-y and just not executed well, and for the most part, I think it was executed exceptionally well. Throughout, it remained one of the most intriguing and unique books that I've read in recent memory. And I mean throughout, like, I kept even, there never came a point where I was not intrigued or when I didn't have questions that I wanted answered. That's a huge rarity for me. I tend to figure out everything. I mean, as soon as the least little breadcrumb is dropped, I'm like, well, I know how this book's gonna end. And I know that so-and-so's gonna do this, and they're gonna kiss that person, and they're gonna change their name to Sally. And it just, you know, like, everything just gets laid out, just rolls out in front of me. And with this, nothing ever did, but not in a way that I felt like the things that happened weren't supported. So sometimes when things are unpredictable or described as coming out of left field in a book, it's because the author didn't do the groundwork to make it believable, so that you could kind of have those breadcrumbs. This isn't like that. It's not that I ever feel like nothing in the story is supported. It's just so different and keeps you so on edge with all three of them that you really never know what's coming because they don't know what's coming. So there aren't a lot of breadcrumbs to leave. But when things happen, it makes sense and it is believable. So it was a really interesting and unique reading experience, I think. I thought the world and the character and the voices were strong, but the real strength to me was in the character dynamics. So in the way they interacted with each other, the way they felt each other was really, really fascinating. And I think one of the strongest elements of the book. There was a point where I was like, the third character escapes her death, and it's revealed to her, and she, you know, meets these other two characters who have had a while to deal with it. And I'm thinking at this point, this is where it's going to go south. Because if you've grown up knowing your whole life that you are going to die on such and such day, and no matter what you do, that's what's going to happen, and then you don't, one of two things is going to happen. You're either going to think that you're invincible and be totally reckless, or you're going to be terrified of everything because you don't know when you're going to die or what's going to happen, and anything could kill you. Before, getting shot wouldn't kill you unless it was your death day. You might be maimed for life, but you know that you're not going to die. Now, a paper cut could get infected and kill you. Like, you're going to have fear of everything. And I felt, for some reason, like that was going to be neglected. Like, it was just going to be, okay, I've escaped my death, but now we're trying to focus on this, and I'm focusing on this link that I have with these two people, and the sort of real dealing with-ness of the aftermath of something like that, of that total paradigm shift in how you've lived your life. I thought that was going to be ignored, and it wasn't. It wasn't. It was actually dealt with really well. It met and exceeded my expectations. I really have to give them props. I shouldn't have doubted, but I just feel like I've read so many books where that would have been ignored in favor of like some swoony romance or, you know, some more thriller adventure stuff, and not that sort of internal conflict. And to get that internal conflict, I really prized. I think it will also win a lot of people over for the fact that it is not sort of the straightforward romance or romance triangle that you might be expecting, especially from a YA book. There is no attraction between either of the male characters and the female characters. Actually, it's the male characters that quite like each other, and it's very, very sweet romance. Instead, there's kind of a camaraderie and a sense of family that you don't a lot of times get, unfortunately, and I also really enjoyed that. So for the most part, this was strong throughout until the end, which was kind of horrible. Now, I assume that with a horrible ending like this one, that there's going to be more. I haven't looked it up because I don't want to be angry, just in case it turns out there's not, but I would assume, like almost positively, that there's got to be another book coming, which still doesn't quite excuse the ending for me. I mean, I'm not saying that it's not strong, but it is one that's gonna piss people off like you wouldn't believe. There's no resolution, and in fact, I flipped back and forth on my Kindle like 3 times, like, am I skipping a page somehow? Did they send me like a corrupted file and I don't have the last page? Like, it's one of those where even if you're going to have a totally abrupt dun 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 type of end, you need to make it actually feel complete. And this didn't quite feel complete. It felt cut to black in the middle like The Sopranos. So that's probably going to piss some people off. But if there is another book coming, I will absolutely be reading it because I'm very curious, not only to see how things are explained, because I think the twist of the ending doesn't explain what's going on in the book, because no matter your kind of relationship with science, how scientifically literate you are, you as a human being are going to be able to read this twist ending and be like, well, but that doesn't happen. That's not how this works. There's got to be more to it, which is why I think there's another book, and I'm curious to see, and it's strong enough and layered enough and nuanced enough that I would read it regardless, even if I was really super pissed off by the end. You know, I'd still want to see where it's going, and I want to see more from the authors because I think they presented a really interesting, unique world. For the most part, I liked it, and I'm not going to let that end color my perceptions of the book, but I will warn you, if you're one of those people that hates cliffhangers, hates abrupt endings, hates lack of resolution, either prepare yourself or skip this one. Quick add-on here because I just finished editing and I realized that I didn't talk about the other thing that I didn't really love about this, and that is there's a kind of villain figure that's introduced pretty late in the game and is pretty over the top and results in a fight scene that is so absurdly ridiculous and that I don't know how you would come back from, and I really am bothered when there aren't consequences to things that seem legit. So when someone is really injured, like, they should show that. It shouldn't be, you know, an easy recovery, and this did have that, which that did knock it back a little bit for me, and it bears mentioning, but for the most part I think it's still intriguing enough and the positives outweigh the negatives enough that that wouldn't keep me from recommending it, but worth noting. But there you have it. That is a probably way too long look at 3 books that I've read recently that I really liked and would recommend, and that you may be seeing at least the first 2, possibly the 3rd, on my favorite books of 2018. I guess we'll see. We're getting close though, so probably. If you have read any of these, let me know your thoughts in the comments, even if you disagreed, maybe especially if you disagreed. I would love to know. And if you've been wanting to read these, let me know why, or if you've read anything super intriguing or similar to these lately, I would love to know about them. But that is all for now. As always, thank you guys for watching, and of course, happy reading! I'm not normally a sweaty person, just as a general rule. I'm not a sweaty person, but my god, I am the sweatiest of sweaty betties right now.